Alright, so it's Kung Fu Panda 2. You know, as you would know, it's based off of the movie. Actually, it's based off the end of the movie, so it kind of carries on the story. You still control the panda, Po, as he and the rest of the Furious Five are trying to save Gongmen City from Shen's thugs, if you watch the movie. And you know, these thugs come in a form of gorillas, crocodiles, wolves. You know, it's a really good variety of tough looking animals. But the point is, does Kung Fu Panda 2, you know, bring the action like the film did, or does it join that list of failed movie to game representations?
Let's get this started.
Alright, so as I mentioned before, Shen's thugs are still trying to take over the city. Actually, in fact, everyone is celebrating. Everyone's in celebration after the conclusion of the second movie. But then that's quickly turned into despair after they found out that the thugs are trying to still take over Gongmen City. This kind of just leads to a big team up, combining the Masters, the Furious Five, and of course Po. And their goal is to just drive the thugs out of the city, which inevitably leads them to the mystery behind all the chaos and who's really behind what's happening. Story is pretty simple. It's not too hard to understand. It develops itself pretty well throughout the game, and it doesn't jump around. It's pretty solid. What I do like about it is that there's a certain point in the game where you could travel with each of the three masters and take a look what's happening in their territories. What I found good about this was that it meant that you could piece together the story any way you wanted, depending on which master you went with first, second and third. So it gave a lot of freedom, which appealed quite a lot to me. Cutscenes look good. They're used really well in helping the story to move along, but most of the time the characters, their dialogue, it looks like they're not there. They're just completely dead, and most of the time the mouths are just flapping, but they're not synced to the lines they're actually saying. What's good I could say about it is that at least the fact that the characters, they stay true to their movie counterparts in both their body language and speech. So the cutscenes themselves could have been better, they could have been more fluid, and in which it could have blurred the line between the movie and game a little more. The game mainly takes place in Gongmen City, but then you get to travel to several places outside it. Most of the objectives you have to complete, you know, are pretty simple. You defeat a number of enemies in order to advance. The Furious Five are always around to help you whenever you need it. You know, for example, there's Tigress, who's there running a ladder for you in order to get over a wall, or you can call on them in battle to help you take down an enemy you're having trouble with. In terms of controls, there are two types of attack Po can use. There's a strong attack and a quick attack, and you can use them in combination or by themselves to deal damage to your animal enemies. There's also a counter attack, which is pretty much just one button with Po's body turns red, but it does a heck of a lot of damage, which is pretty useful if you're getting beaten up. There's other stuff you can learn as well. There's special moves you can learn from the masters, which you can use during battle. The moves are called chi attacks, and they consume the chi energy. They're like yellow circles underneath your health bar. Combat, well, it's limited. It's seriously limited. The chi attacks, yeah, they look cool and everything, but you know, even so, the enemies are easy to beat, so you barely need them. You'd rarely need them, actually. It'll be surprising if you actually ever use them in the first place. If there's one thing I have to say, is that it was disappointing not to see more moves used. I mean, after all, it is kung fu. They must have had a whole book or so much, like, you know, kung fu moves, kung fu techniques they could have used or implemented, but I guess they decided not to. It just would have added a whole lot more meaning and a whole lot more excitement to the combat, you know. And it does get really draining on the mind fighting enemy after enemy with the same kind of moves.
Hey, you can come out! I took care of your friends.
So there's not much I could really say about the visuals. It sticks to the Kung Fu Panda world in terms of its colors, the way it looks, which is really good, you know. A sense of consistency, which would probably actually be a pretty sensible thing to do, actually. The only problem I really have with it is that sometimes you'd find blurry textures, or, you know, areas that looked a bit stretched that just kind of ruined the detail that surrounds it. For example, grass or tiles on the floor. Also, the character models, if you can't, well, you can't really compare it to the movie, but for someone, for example, someone like Poe is meant to be a round looking character, looks a bit jagged, which is kind of confusing to me. So visuals for consistency and sticking to the world is good. In terms of character, I do think they could have done a lot more better in smoothing out the edges, adding more polys, something like that. Okay, so Kung Fu Panda 2 does stay true to its roots. You know, it keeps pretty much all the aspects that made the movie so popular. The really only problems I can think of about gameplay is the lack of moves, variety. Also, at some points, the frame rate does suddenly drop. Kind of weakens the rush of taking on like 4 enemies at a time. Graphics could have been made to stand out a heck of a lot more. But what definitely gives the game a big plus is the story and the cutscenes, which I think will pretty much appeal to the long-time fans of the movie and the series itself. So, to read the full review, please head on over to wenogamers.net. We're also on Twitter at weno_gamers and Facebook, so facebook.com/wenogamers.